Stop throwing away rice. This simple trick fills your soil with earthworms fast. Welcome back to Soil Stories, where we dig deep, literally, into simple, natural ways to build living, fertile soil. If you've ever rinsed rice, drained leftover cooked rice, or, swept a few dry grains off the kitchen counter and tossed them away, this one's for you. Today I'm sharing a surprisingly powerful, low-effort trick that turns ordinary rice into an earthworm magnet. Not next season. Not eventually. Fast. And once you understand why it works, you'll never look at rice waste the same way again. This isn't a gimmick. It's not about dumping food scraps and hoping for the best. It's about feeding the soil food web in a very specific way that earthworms absolutely love. Whether you garden in beds, containers, sacks, or just a small backyard plot, this method fits right in. Why earthworms matter more than most gardeners realize. Healthy soil isn't just dirt, it's alive. Earthworms are one of the clearest signs that your soil is functioning as an ecosystem, not just a planting medium. When worms move through soil, they create channels that improve aeration and drainage. Their castings are packed with plant-available nutrients, beneficial microbes, and natural growth stimulants. Plants grown in worm-rich soil develop stronger roots, better resilience, and more consistent growth. A lot of gardeners try to add worms directly, but worms just don't stay where food is scarce. If your soil can't support them, they leave or, they die. The real secret isn't importing worms, it's inviting them, and that's where rice comes in. The hidden power of rice in the soil is pretty amazing. Rice is mostly starch, and starch is, honestly, a goldmine for soil life. When rice enters the soil, it doesn't feed plants directly. Instead, it feeds bacteria and fungi. Those microbes multiply rapidly, and earthworms are drawn to that microbial feast. Worms don't eat rice the way we do. They graze on the microorganisms breaking it down. This is why rice works so quickly. You're not waiting for slow composting. You're triggering a microbial bloom just beneath the surface. Where microbes go, worms follow. What makes rice especially effective is how accessible it is. Almost every household has it. It's cheap, familiar, and often wasted. That makes it perfect for an everyday soil-building habit rather than a one-time experiment. Which type of rice works best? Well, here's the good news. Almost any rice works. White rice, brown rice, broken rice, even that slightly old rice you forgot at the back of the cupboard can all be used. Cooked rice works too, as long as it's plain and unsalted. Salt is the one thing you want to avoid because it harms soil life. Dry rice breaks down more slowly, offering a longer-lasting food source. Cooked rice breaks down faster and brings worms in quicker. So, if you want speed, cooked rice wins. If you want steady improvement, dry rice does the job. On Soil Stories, I often mix both depending on what I have available. The simple trick that brings worms fast. This is where most people get it wrong. They scatter rice on the surface and wonder why nothing happens. The real trick is placement. Earthworms prefer dark, moist, cool environments, so instead of leaving rice exposed, lightly bury it just below the surface. 2 to 5 centimeters deep is perfect. At this depth, microbes activate quickly, moisture stays consistent, and worms feel safe enough to move in. Choose an area you want to improve, around fruit trees, vegetable beds, or even tired soil that's been compacted for years. Gently scrape back the topsoil, sprinkle a small handful of rice and cover it back up. Water lightly to activate the process. That's it. Within days, especially in warm weather, you'll notice increased soil activity. Within a couple of weeks, digging in that spot will often reveal worms where there were none before. Rice alone works, but moisture turns it into a turbocharged worm attractor. Soil should be damp, not soggy. If your soil is bone dry, worms will stay deep or disappear altogether. After burying the rice, water gently and consistently. You don't need to flood the area, just keep it evenly moist. In mulched gardens, this happens naturally. Mulch helps hold moisture, regulate temperature, and protect the microbial buffet you've just set up. If you garden in containers or sacks, this method still works, but moisture control becomes even more important. Containers dry out faster, so check regularly. What to expect, and honestly, What not to panic about. As rice breaks down, you might notice a mild sour or fermented smell when you disturb the soil. That's normal. It just means microbes are active and doing their thing. If the smell becomes strong or, kind of unpleasant, it usually means too much rice was added at once. Less is more here. Small, repeated applications work better than dumping large amounts in one spot. You may also notice ants at first. Ants are attracted to starch too, but they usually move on once microbial activity increases and soil conditions stabilize. Worms tend to take over in the long run. So, how often should you do this? This isn't a daily habit. Think of it as a soil-building rhythm. Once every 2 to 3 weeks in different spots is more than enough. Rotate locations so you're building worm populations throughout your garden rather than concentrating them in one area. Over time, as worm populations increase, you'll need this trick less often. Your soil will begin to self-sustain through organic matter, root exudates, and natural decomposition. Why does this work better than many store-bought solutions? Well, many commercial soil boosters promise instant results, but they rely on synthetic inputs that feed plants without actually feeding soil life. Rice does the opposite. It builds the foundation first. Strong soil life leads to long-term fertility, not just short-term growth spikes. This method also respects the pace of nature. You're not forcing anything. You're offering food and conditions, then letting the ecosystem respond. That's why it works in backyard gardens just as well as in large plots. Once you see how powerful rice can be in the soil, it really changes how you view kitchen waste. Suddenly, leftovers aren't trash, they're tools. Soil Stories is all about these mindset shifts. Gardening honestly gets easier when you work with biology instead of against it. Over the course of several months, gardeners who use this method consistently report darker soil, better structure, improved water retention, and stronger plant growth. And the thing is, it all starts with something you were probably just throwing away. Here are some final thoughts from Soil Stories. Healthy soil doesn't come from bottles or bags alone. It comes from simple, repeatable actions that support life below the surface. Rice is one of the easiest entry points into that world. It's humble, effective, and accessible to everyone. If you try this method, give it some time and observe. Dig gently. Watch how the soil changes. That curiosity is really what turns a gardener into a soil storyteller. If you found this guide helpful, make sure to subscribe to Soil Stories for more practical, real-world soil wisdom. Share this with a fellow gardener who's still throwing rice away. Let's grow better soil together, one simple trick at a time.